Reality Tech and myself have worked with SharePoint, building workflows, forms, since the very first version, 2001, for those who remember it. And it's come a long way. There's a lot you can do. I'm just going to describe a little bit about quiz forms that we've used most recently for a very interesting business use case, and talk a little bit about how we did it, why, and some of the benefits of the approach that we took. Quiz Forms pulls together forms building, forms creation, as well as print capability, document generation in a very easy to use, deploy, manage, and configure form. It allows creation of forms, but in a structured format. We can create tabs or go with an accordion approach. And for each of the fields, we have formatting. We can control permissions around columns. We'll talk about that a bit more. Validate the data, use some smart default values along the way, repeating rows, countdown timer, and more. So the big challenge that we faced was a very large life sciences company, a pharmaceutical, needed to manage their onboarding and offboarding. Every company has to deal with this, and it always starts off small, people emailing each other. We've done forms in InfoPath, in Power Platform, and it could be a bit of a struggle. We wanted to go with a tabbed format, so we wouldn't have to scroll through all the different fields, and we wanted to take a more structured approach to break things up into sections. We wanted to be able to set it up so it can easily flow with workflow and control from a security perspective who can see what, who can edit what. So, and we wanted to streamline the entire process, but more importantly, we wanted to do it in a way that was not a science project. It was something that we could train power users to manage, because it's not just about the demo. It's not just about making it look pretty, but how you manage it. Because the little secret in all of these systems is most internal tools fail not because they can't be built, but because they can't be maintained. They can't be managed, updated continually, or even printed as a proper document. So the handoff between a form and a document is where most Power Platform projects start to fall apart. And what we found is that using the quiz SnapOn products pulled that together, as we're going to see. So I'm going to switch now. There we go. To a UAT version of what we developed, the employee onboarding and offboarding. So here's what the dashboard looks like. And again, you can only imagine how HR and legal must have drowned in emails back and forth as onboarding employees. And we'll get to offboarding later and how this all ties in. The status of it, and how to manage it, never mind how to print or how to comply with compliance when auditing is needed. And I mentioned print a few times because in highly regulated environments like pharmaceuticals, they care a lot about fulfilling regulatory needs, audit internal as well as external. So let's double click and just open one of these forms and we could see what it looks like for this particular user. We're only using test data here, and client data is never exposed. And you could see each of the tabs. We click through personal information, and there's a flow to it. It starts as a person gets a job. We get to HR and payroll details with some secure information, like base salary. Then IT goes to work. Certain things are needed. Will the user require a cell phone? Do they require a laptop? And all the documents that need signing along the way, have each of them been done? And I'll start to talk about offboarding, because if we set them up for a laptop, that has to be returned at the end of the day. In offboarding, we built a countdown timer. Quiz offers this, that allows us to comply with the speed of offboarding the user tied in with their last day and everything being decommissioned. So let's go back. Forms could easily be edited. We're not going to change anything. So let me cancel that. And oh, one more thing that's awfully nice to show. I can click on a couple of these. You could click on all of them, and we can go print items. Now, normally when you try to print web-based things, they don't always look so good. It gets cut off with paper, but the print solution offered by Quiz really ties it all together. So all the things we've configured, you get a phenomenal output. The print does utilize a plugin in the browser for generating print, and the print is generally largely used by internal users, so that's quite manageable. The print takes a little bit of time, but the other thing that this allows us to do, which we're going to see in a moment, is business users can move quickly. One of the objectives was, rather than programmers, we wanted to enable power users to be able to utilize this. And we're going to get to see how those users could easily change the functionality of the form. It's a little mouse print here. I could show later what it looks like, but the entire form, each gray line is one of those tabs, flows out, and you may not have seen it. You can see it on the side. I selected 2 of these entries, so they all fold into this report. I'll cancel this for now. And now let's take a look at what's going on in the form. I click Quiz Apps so you could see what we've developed. Now, Quiz offers a very nice layout of different ways to look into what's built. Let's start with the form builder, because everything kind of starts with the form. Each of these, job details, HR, payroll details, each of these are the tabs that we saw. Let's go into personal information, and to see the tab, we click Group Layout, and that shows each of the fields. So if I take a look into Employee ID column, click on that, we could see, say, what default values are for that. And so the rules are very easy to edit, and they can be seen in place right here. Date of birth, we could have validations. Let's take a look at that. They have to be, well, old enough to work a job. We're not doing child labor here, but you get the idea. Each of these things, we can confirm that they're valid. Valid email address. We made emergency contact information mandatory, for example, and we can click to the next tab, job details, to get a sense of that. So for the default department, we went with IT as default for new items, for example. So every one of these could be defaulted. And as you could see, this is power user enabled to be edited. Now, I know sometimes we have challenge training users, but we assume if someone's a power user within one of the departments, could be HR, could be legal for their part, they could modify any one of these fields. We have within here a linkage between the field and the list items, lookups going to various lists. So everything is easily tied together. And I'll just look at some of these. So some can be mandatory, and we have certain validations we've defined for things like email address. And for offboarding, once again, this is the back-end view, and the countdown timer is built in here as well. So let's take a click back, and let's take a look at column validation. This is another way to view. We were viewing field by field within each tab before, but now we're looking at all the column validations that are done across the entire form. Sometimes you want to go in here and see that, say, the emergency contact number is a valid phone number. or that base salary, well, we don't have volunteers, so we want to make sure we're paying them. So all of these could easily be validated. A join date is needed, etc. The other thing that we could do here is to secure columns so that some of them, column permissions, we can control based on role. Who could see, say, the salary? That's an obvious one. We could also see what the default values are. Some of these we saw earlier when we went poking around the fields, but here it is, all in one location, all of the default values in one place. We also have the ability to connect to external data, repeating rows that we're not using, and more. Control files, conditional formatting, where we change the format based on the data that's shown. All of this is pretty easy to configure, as well as cascading lookups. So let's go back. Let me close this. And let me see if I could pull up so you could see. This is, I'll make it a little bigger, what the exported form looks like. So this is a pretty printed version. And within the printing configuration, we're able to easily put headers, footers, our logo on here. With a few clicks, we made this very, very user-friendly and usable. So in summary, the big thing here is we're leveraging all of SharePoint's built-in capabilities. We're able to do it without getting lost in the details of Power Platform's licensing, which can get a little bit dicey when it comes to premiums and add-ins. This is pretty straightforward. We get away from the waterfall kind of development where you gather all the requirements up front, because within Power Platform, you have little bits of what comes close to code. But as we can see from what I've shown, it's really, really easy to configure these fields. And we're able to do continual improvement and deploy between environments. So governance and being able to prototype in one site collection, deploy to the next site collection, without having to retest the entire application, because it's quite granular how we're able to control all of the conditions, defaults, visibility, column permissions, layouts, all within QuizCom. And up here, we have the ability within QuizApps to be able to export the entire set. The entire form is easily exportable. Export and import settings are over here. Let me just go into print that I mentioned earlier so you can get a sense of that. And there's only a few things that you want to edit. So we looked at, we have the watermark, the page layouts, and the header and footer. As you saw, we had our logo, the page numbers. I mean, it doesn't get much simpler than that. So this allows the client to be able to push out updates, and HR to be able to manage those updates. The documents ride for this. Under the covers, I don't want to get too lost in the weeds, are some simple SharePoint lists that enable managing of this. You have the central list here, and we have some lookup lists. Lists for the departments, lists for nationality, each of these lookup things that we want within here, the job titles, and all of that is easy for end users to manage. And one key thing about this form is it's version enabled. So you can easily roll back or roll forward versions. That's critical because in a lot of these GUI, simple to edit forms editors, there often isn't an easy undo, and you only have that snapshot view. That doesn't allow for management. So in summary, you have the export import capability, the ability to deploy between environments. You have the version control, you know who made changes, and you can roll back as well in the timestamps. So effectively, you have the ability to have proper governance around this solution. A lot of these form solutions really often are departmental level and they don't scale up. This is a larger life sciences company, and they needed a little bit more of those capabilities on versioning, on governance, and who can approve the deployment of the updates. So we have the full environmental management. You have the ability to scale the form up without having users scroll endlessly through the tabbed capability. And you have the print friendliness that some environments still manage. I don't like to print much, but a lot of companies need those paper files and the ability to do that rapid export. Now, you can always print to a PDF. That's what I did to be able to show that one example. But print to PDF may be what's needed for internal or external audit. And you have, as I described earlier, the ability to have security controlled fields and views. So this in a nutshell gives a sense around it. I didn't talk much about the workflow because jobs and job applicants flow in and there's a process. You could see some of the checkboxes for that. For they've signed off on this document, on that document, the W-9 is collected, payment information, how you do payroll is collected, all of these things, and they go through stages. We have the workflows defined as well. And if something isn't moved along fast enough to meet the timer, these alert us both through alerts today, email alerts, and also through escalations. The best way to manage is by exception. I want to see what's stuck, what's not moving forward, what are we waiting for? And this application provides for that. So in summary, the client really liked it. They didn't need to pull their development team in, and we were able to train them. And of course, we, Reality Tech, are second-tier support. Whenever they need help, they could reach out to us. And to be honest with you, we're a bit relieved we're not dependent on Microsoft support, which, look, they built their product, they know their product, but they don't always understand the business cases. So we could provide the bespoke, custom, concierge level support to the user. And Quizcom is behind us every step of the way for when we need support as well. And that works seamlessly, flawlessly, and enables not just a successful deployment of an application like this, but a long-term relationship where we're there to help maintain it as the application inevitably evolves. Because any application that doesn't need any update and doesn't have any support needs is probably not being used. So it's a sign of success that there's continual refinement and occasional questions that come up for new features, new capabilities, or basically how to.